Top United States military generals and admirals are warning that Donald Trump has walked the United States directly into a fatal and cataclysmic trap, both short-term and long-term. This comes as Donald Trump posted on his social media account that he has now declared economic D-Day against Iran, and that Donald Trump will now impose the, quote, most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country, and that any country that helps Iran will be targeted by Donald Trump. But at the same time, Donald Trump is now attacking South Korea for running joint military tests with the United States because Trump says that that is too hostile to Kim Jong-un of North Korea, who is helping Iran. At the same time, Donald Trump is saying he wants to meet with North Korea's Kim Jong-un again. Kim Jong-un's sister is saying no such meeting is scheduled and that they have no clue what Donald Trump means when he claims he's talking to Kim Jong-un. Donald Trump depriving Ukraine of the Patriot interceptors or interceptor licenses Zelensky needs desperately. At the same time, Russia is working with Iran, and Donald Trump begging Xi Jinping to come to the United States in September. Trump bowing down to Xi Jinping as he talks about the Thucydides trap, as China and their foreign minister Wang Yi are talking about helping Iran. So are those the countries you're going to go after, Donald? Or are you going to go after NATO countries that don't want to get involved in the catastrophic and unlawful war against Iran? Well, let's talk about what our top military generals are warning about. And they're warning that Donald Trump, of course, short term, has created a condition where the United States has run out of weapons. We run out of Patriot interceptors and THAADs, defensive weapons. We've run out of Navy destroyer anti-ballistics, SM-2, SM-3s, and other SM series anti-ballistics. We've also run out of offensive weapons like the HIMARS, ATACMS. We've depleted our Tomahawks. The last supercarrier, the USS George Washington in the Pacific, has now left to replace the ailing USS Abraham Lincoln, where Donald Trump has treated our courageous sailors and Marines like absolute crap, but he's been treating all of our service members abroad like absolute crap. And we've been hearing from family members, not just on the supercarriers, but other ships and at bases. We've been reporting on it. Aaron Parnas has reporting it, but also long term. Our top military generals and admirals are saying that Donald Trump has destroyed our military capabilities. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth have forced out some of our top and finest generals like Randy George, the Army Chief of Staff, C.Q. Brown Jr., the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and so many others. And Donald Trump has replaced them with Trump sycophantic bootlickers who are like, we need to return to the basics when it comes to the military. We don't want to deal with them drones or them drone warfare. We got to focus on how wars were fought in World War II. We got to focus on the warrior spirit. What is this, like World War II, Bushido in Japan? That didn't exactly work out well. No, perhaps what we should be doing is what Army Chief of Staff Randy George was pioneering, which Hegseth and Trump hated, which was cutting-edge modern warfare, drones, anti-drones, developing a U.S. version that's more advanced than the Shahed, U.S. FPV-style drones, unmanned submersives. No, but the Trump regime would rather attack Zelensky, who wanted to help provide cutting-edge drone technology and just ask for some interceptors in exchange, or just interceptors in general, while Donald Trump also pursues, and our top military generals and admirals are warning about this as well, he wants the Trump class of battleships, which would be far more expensive than the Ford class of supercarrier aircraft carriers. Donald Trump doesn't like stealth. Donald Trump doesn't like aircraft carriers. He likes battleships, the way they looked between 1920 and 1940. And Trump wants to spend $250 billion, which when all said and done, it'll probably come to about $1 trillion on nuclear-powered battleships that won't be ready for perhaps as long as a decade. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is getting us into all of these wars abroad, never-ending wars. Now, at the same time, Donald Trump has pushed through spending our taxpayer dollars on Trump-class nuclear-powered battleships, which can so easily be destroyed with an unmanned submersive and with drones. So the biggest waste of money on the Ford class of ships, the aircraft carriers like the Gerald Ford, like the Abraham Lincoln, and others. Donald Trump wants on future Ford class aircraft carriers. He wants to get rid of the electromagnetic launching and propulsion system for aircraft because Donald Trump loves his steam catapults. Donald Trump says he knows better than anybody. We got to do steam catapults. And all of our top generals, all of our top admirals like, steam catapults, what the hell are you talking about? There's a reason we built these electromagnetic propulsion systems. It's because they're the best and they're the most advanced and cutting edge. And that's what we should have. And then you had Randy George, who was forced out. People loved Randy George and Randy George's wife. They were like the most popular people like in the entire army. And Trump and Hegseth got rid of them. And they were talking about or Randy George was focused on cutting edge drone warfare. So here's what we learned in the Wall Street Journal as our top military officials were leaking the following to the Journal. The elimination of a futuristic drone battalion is part of a broader back to basics approach ordered up by General Christopher Leneve, the acting chief of the Army, deeply unpopular guy, who is closely aligned with Secretary Pete Hegseth. The battalion, the drone battalion, was a signature initiative of Leneve's predecessor, General Randy George, whom Hegseth ousted in April. As Brian Tannehill says, wow, this is going to get a lot of U.S. troops killed if there's a land war in the future. Hegseth really thinks the, quote, warrior spirit, injecting yourself with testosterone, is more important than tech logistics. Japan bet on Bushido in World War II. How did that work out for them? Here's the article by the Journal. New drone unit to be phased out as Hegseth's army pick makes his mark. The hell are we even doing here? The Army took a major step to prepare for wars of the future in January, when it established a new battalion in Europe to master the art of fighting with drones and ground robots. The idea was to learn the lessons of the conflict in Ukraine that has been raging on the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's doorstep, NATO's doorstep, and develop cutting-edge military systems and tactics to counter the Russian threat. Pause. That's what China's doing. China is getting a lot of real-time learning from Iran, from North Korea, from Russia, from their allies. But the much-touted drone assault battalion is now being phased out. Why is it being phased out? Because you have the Army now wanting to focus on its core warfighting tasks as an airborne infantry battalion, and it wants to stop experimenting with drones. The elimination of a futuristic drone battalion is part of a broader back to basics approach. That's what they're calling it, back to basics. And this is being pioneered by the Hegseth loyalist Christopher Leneve, the acting chief of staff of the Army, who is closely aligned with Defense Secretary Hegseth. The battalion was a signature initiative of Leneve's predecessor, General Randy George, who Hegseth ousted in April. As Admiral McRaven said, and Admiral McRaven is, you've seen him, we've showed videos of him on the MeidasTouch network before, about as respected as you get, retired Admiral McRaven. I can tell you from experience that Generals C.Q. Brown, Randy George, Jim Mingus, J.P. McGee, Dave Hodeney, Jim Slyke, Joe Berger, Admirals Lisa Franchetti and Jamie Sands and others were warfighters through and through. And he's like, what the hell are Hegseth and Donald Trump doing right here? When General Randy George was ousted in his farewell address, he says, "The Army deserves leaders of character. I know you'll stay laser focused on the mission and cut through bureaucracy to get our warfighters what they need." Sadly, Donald Trump is taking away what our warfighters need, quite literally, aboard the Abraham Lincoln and the other supercarriers, the supporting battleships, the supporting destroyers. We're seeing our service members not even get the most basic nutrition. Donald Trump ripping apart the most important technology on these ships because Donald Trump thinks that he knows better. This guy's an idiot. This isn't me saying this Democratic, independent Republican. The guy is a dangerous idiot. Just to remind you, this is what Donald Trump recently said about why steam is better, because he said someone came up to him and said, "Steam is better, sir. Steam is better." But before showing you that, I do want to talk about another leak. This one was leaked to CBS and from our top military officials. Some U.S. military members who are itching to play a video game they've anticipated for more than a decade can trade a commitment for several more years of their life in uniform for a few days off to play Grand Theft Auto 6. As an incentive to re-enlist, a U.S. Army unit in Georgia is offering active duty soldiers a 4-day pass to play the popular game when it's released this fall. U.S. officials are telling them. That is what our military has become under Hegseth and under Trump, and our top generals are not liking it one bit. Listen up. Listen to what Donald Trump now said about steam. Let's play it.
And I said, "What's better, electric catapult or steam?" He's been there for 25 years. He said, "Steam is better, sir. We can fix it with a hammer and a blowtorch. When the electric goes bad, I have to send to MIT to get geniuses over here." I said, "Steam is better." "Yes, sir, it's better." "So why did they do electric?" "Because you can have the catapult go like this, but you can't put planes on it, sir. It takes you 39 seconds. By the time the 39 seconds is up, you have a full head of steam. And I love breathing that steam, sir. That's the cleanest air you've ever seen." But I said, "So you're saying we spend billions of dollars extra to build electric catapults instead of using..." And I said, "What else do you hear?" He said, "The elevators are no good, sir. They're lifted up by magnets." So here's my deal. I said, when Caterpillar tractor, and I watch more tractors than any human being on earth, rip rock, right through rock. It's all hydraulic. So I said, when Caterpillar goes into the business of using magnets to lift up their little blades, when they go in and when they go away from hydraulic, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do something. I'm going to start using magnets, but we don't want to use them. So we're not letting any more ships be built with the ridiculous billions of dollars more they spent on electric catapults, and they're not good.
Also, MS Now getting this scoop about Natalie Harp, as top intelligence officials are also leaking the following scoop. Trump aide Natalie Harp worked at the White House without a security clearance for a year. Both people who spoke with MS Now said Harp's reasoning for failing to complete the process was unknown after concerns mounted among the White House counsel's office and security officials. The president himself intervened, and Harp in recent months filled out the forms to launch a formal federal background investigation and receive the clearance, one person said. As Joy Saline says, she declined. You can't just decline to get a security clearance. And did Donald Trump, I don't know, override the normal security clearance process to give Natalie a security clearance? Does Natalie, I'm asking questions, I don't know the answer, pose a national security threat? While all of this is going down, what is the Trump regime doing? Just continuing to launch their campaign of lies. Last night, Donald Trump went to Axios. Barack Ravid, right? It's either Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv or Barack Ravid in Tel Aviv, that's where they're based, who launder Donald Trump's propaganda. Barack Ravid posted, U.S. conducting stealth operation to transport oil through Hormuz. How stealth can it be there, Barack, if you're talking about it? It's a great stealth operation, everybody. And then this article goes on to claim that the U.S. has quietly established a shipping corridor in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. And it claims that for the last several weeks, 15 to 20 tankers have entered and exited the Strait of Hormuz each night through a southern channel along the coast of Oman. About 10 million barrels a day, roughly half the pre-war volume, are being transported out of the strait. Now, as this one open source intelligence account goes, stealth operation, map of reported incidents in the Strait of Hormuz since May 2026. And you can see the dozens of tankers by the Oman route that have been destroyed by Iran. Really good stealth operation. Also, this is just a lie. Every aspect of it. We're not getting out 10 million barrels. That's not true. There's not 10 to 15 tankers that are getting out. This is Trump manipulating the market with Axios. Okay, that's what's going on in my opinion. I'm giving you my opinion of what Trump is doing. Barack Ravid denies that he knows that he's doing this, but I believe, in my opinion, Trump is manipulating the markets. 15 to 20 tankers, about 10 million barrels of oil a day. Okay, so if that's really happening, let's use the most basic logic here. Why do we keep on drawing down our strategic petroleum reserves? Why is it at a record low and we're at tank bottom? Why is it that gas prices are at an all-time historical high, nationwide average for this time of year in the history of the United States? Why is diesel at an all-time high, $5.50 national average? Why is the diesel crack spread, the delta between the price of refinery diesel and the paper price of crude that we talk about from the Strait of Hormuz or from wherever, the source of crude. Why is that $102 and going up? So why is that happening if the secret route and everything is going great? No, because they lie. They lie about everything. That's their game plan. Just lie about things. Destroy, dismantle, and then lie, and then blame. And so you have Iran's lead negotiator, when there were negotiations, which haven't happened in months, parliament leader, top civilian political leader, MB Ghalibaf, posing for this photo that he posted in front of the Strait of Hormuz. And then we heard from Iran's General Mohammad Reza Naqvi, who says the U.S. government announced two main objectives in the war: to overthrow Iran's political system and to partition Iran. They imagined that within 3 to 4 days, they could overthrow the Iranian system and then partition Iran. Not only did they fail, but after those two objectives failed, their war became a war without a strategy. He goes on to say, the Strait of Hormuz will never lose its importance. This is where oil and gas are produced. The Persian Gulf itself is a center of oil and gas production. You can't pull the oil wells out of the ground and move there somewhere else. At most, instead of loading it onto ships, they can put it through pipelines and take it somewhere else. But those pipelines are vulnerable. They can still be struck and damaged. It's not as though they can simply solve the problem that way. Building the infrastructure would also take years, and many products aren't easily transferable at all. Gas, for example, requires complex and expensive processing and infrastructure. So it's not as though they can make themselves independent of this region. The Americans said they are going to open the Strait of Hormuz. Is America in the Strait of Hormuz now? Bring me one American. There are all these media organizations in the world. Bring me one American in the Strait of Hormuz and show me. Let's see if they can show one. The current president of the United States is extremely short-sighted and childish. He has no long-term vision. When he says something, he doesn't even think about what will happen 24 hours later. Meanwhile, Iraq's Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi met with MB Ghalibaf yesterday, and here's what Iraq's Prime Minister said. Welcome to your country, Mr. Ghalibaf, and your second home. We here consider Iraq and Iran to be a single nation that exists in two countries. That's what's actually going on in the world. Hit subscribe, Get your copy of WTF America. We appreciate you so much for watching. Leave a comment. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you so much. Breaking news right now. My brothers and I wrote a book. It's called WTF America. And well, doesn't that just say it all? It comes out officially this October, but you can pre-order your copy today. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description below.